Okay, so today we're going to talk about this idea that the most important job that human beings might have in the future is to work with machines to identify what the true world is, so that the machines can be creating their algorithms based on the truth, what the real world out there is. And we've been postulating that there would be a number of entities that would have incentive to try to create fictional realities that they would like to train the machines on. Now, up until now, this has been a kind of theoretical thing, and maybe a long-term thing, and you think, well, yeah, maybe someday that'll be a problem. However, some things have happened that are kind of interesting. So, this week, an article appeared by Bertolin Metzko, 5 Reasons Why Artificial Intelligence Won't Replace Physicians. And this article is free, and his medicalfuturist.com site says that there are 3 long articles like this that appear every week, and so this week this is one of them. Now, he also has a book that you have to pay for, and the book is about $15. And if you pay for that book, so this book is Artificial Intelligence in Healthcare. And that book basically has 4 chapters or sections, and the last chapter is very similar to this article. The last chapter is entitled, Will Artificial Intelligence Replace Physicians? And what is really odd about the situation that we're in that makes you think that this fictional reality training kind of thing has already started in May of 2018 is that those two are different. You would think that if there's a chapter on this and this recent article that they would be more or less the same. But the chapter seems quite reasonable in its approach, and it concludes, the bottom line of the chapter is as follows. It's these 2 sentences. Artificial intelligence will not replace physicians, yet medical professionals who use AI will replace those who don't. And they go through all the reasons for this. I think that's a reasonable conclusion. And it's almost the opposite conclusion of this recent article, which I think a lot of people will think, well, it must be the same as that last chapter in the book. This article doesn't say that. This article says basically that by being human, right? That's all we need to do is just be human. We don't have to be like energetic or hardworking or believing in the power of technology. We just have to be human, which isn't that hard. I mean, that's probably the starting point. As long as you remain human, you're protected against artificial intelligence replacing you. And then the person who wrote this, and it really can't be that the authorship in these 2 things is the same, right? I mean, they're similar. They contain similar sentences, of course, because presumably this article started with the text from the book, which I think is quite accurate, balanced, and so on. But some unknown influence then has altered it, right? There's like some sort of influence has changed this so that practically every component of it is not defensible. So let's just go through what some of these things are. Like the idea that healthcare will always need humans, that this human touch, must always be there. I think anything that can be described in words and formulas and so on, machines could presumably learn how to have that same effect when we reach the point where machines are more intelligent than we are.
I think it makes it seem like this human quality is something that's completely unachievable.
Right. That no machine could ever be close enough to being human, and we're protected by being human. We're absolutely protected. No machine is ever going to take our job. And the author emphasizes this as being true of physicians, maybe not other healthcare workers, but the simple argument seems to be, and I mean it's a laughable argument, it's not one that I believe, but physicians are so perfect and so special, right? And because we're so magically perfect and special, how could a machine ever be like us? It's just absolutely impossible, right? And so, and then the various points. We cannot replace empathy. So it's saying empathy is purely human, that machines will never learn to be empathetic. I think you can already detect pretty convincing simulated empathy right now in 2018, with various chatbots. Even the video that I have with a Sony Aibo robotic dog, you sort of feel like the dog cares about me. I know that he really doesn't, but you sort of begin to get that feeling. So I don't think that we can be sure that that machines will be incapable of empathy, or that humans won't like machine offered empathy as much as they would like human offered empathy. I think often when somebody does something that seems empathetic, you're a little bit suspicious, because it's just you may think that there's some ulterior motive, because that's sort of the way humans are or something. They seem to be being empathetic, but maybe they're just pretending that. So I don't even know that machine-generated empathy would be less convincing than human-generated empathy. I think it might be equally good in the long run. Physicians have a non-linear working method. I'm talking here about like lateral thinking and leaps of faith and so on. But if you think about those two terms, like if you can define what they are, okay, non-linear means like bringing ideas from some other sector, or bringing together ideas that maybe some people wouldn't think are connected, and testing whether maybe an idea from some other area would work. It seems to me inevitable that once machines got the idea of what this structure of the leap of faith or lateral thinking was, why wouldn't they be able to do that better? They would know, their knowledge base would be greater than ours. They would have more different sectors for possible comparison, and generation of ideas.
I was thinking that too, in that they specifically mention the word creativity, that humans have intrinsically more creativity, but I feel like with AI and with machine thinking, they would be able to compute way more possibilities than we could and go through all of the different ways they could solve a problem. So I feel like that would be an advantage for AI.
Yeah. So in 2001, you can watch this. Not that I'm recommending you to do it, but I just a few days before September 11th, I think it was like September 8th or 9th, I was at a meeting at the Banff Center for Conferences, the Banff New Media Center, called Smart, Sexy, Healthy. And I, at that time, had an artificial intelligence generated painting screensaver that painted a painting right in front of you. And one of the best speakers I ever heard, who became the president of big societies of art and design and so on, really excellent speaker, was looking at my AI generated painting program, and she said, I don't know if I can compete with this. And I thought that was so cool. I mean, that was 2001, right? So now you could imagine that, like, a program that can paint, a program that can create poetry, music, all sorts of things like that, in 2018 even, might seem to be more creative than some human physicians. And as time goes on, they would become even more so. Also in here is the idea that since human beings are programming machines, that machines can't get beyond that programming, so they're just so dumb because we human beings program them, and but that's not true. That we presume that they will be able to self-improve. So the fact that we created them originally does not ensure that they won't become more capable than we are. There will always be tasks, algorithms, and robots can never complete. And they talk here about the Heimlich maneuver, when somebody's choking and that sort of thing. Can't you imagine a robot made just to perform the Heimlich maneuver that's like better than any human, and you get all the angles right, and it knows just exactly how to react to what the patient's doing. I mean, I don't think that there are very few things like that you can really postulate that machines will never be able to do. So, just getting to the bottom of this then, we have discovered a surprising difference, dramatic difference, between two documents that apparently have the same author, but probably there's been another influence in the more recent one that has all these flaws. So it seems to us this is something quite consequential, and it's occurring now. It's similar to the wonderful articles and graphics in the laboratory medicine publication now, The Pathologist, which is a gleaming advertisement for pathology laboratory medicine. But the reason that it's so good is that a lot of the writing is done by marketing professionals working for companies supplying products to laboratory medicine. I mean, these guys took courses in how to influence people and how to write prose that will make people want to think positively and buy stuff. and so on. And more, that periodical has things written directly by people employed by corporate partners rather than by laboratory physicians themselves. So that's also a similar sort of phenomenon. And that periodical also clearly indicates, both in text and in the accompanying video, that AI will not cause anybody to lose their jobs, that no physician is going to lose their job. The presumption is even physicians who dig in their heels and say, this AI stuff is totally bogus, I'm not going to do anything about it, I'm just going to practice pathology like I always have, that even they will be protected by this special humanness and so on. It's like machines will just say, I give up, I can't possibly simulate any of this stuff. So what we would like to ask you, the audience, there must be people out there who know more about how this has actually happened. How in 2018 have we ended up with such flawed presentations where it seemed like the entity behind them knows better? Like in this instance, it's clear, since the book is correct and the recent free article, where you don't have to pay for the book, contains numerous flaws, there must have been something specific that happened to create those flawed alterations in this document, so that almost every paragraph is wrong and there is no support for any of the strong arguments that it makes about the fact that humans have nothing to worry about. I think the reality there is exactly the same as the way the book concludes, which is that, just as those two sentences say, I mean, it's scary, but it's not that scary. Artificial intelligence will not replace physicians, yet medical professionals who use AI will replace those who don't. I think that is the reality. So how important is this? I think it's very important. You can think, I don't know if you think this is too grand wording, but a final conflict between good and evil taking place right in front of our eyes. That's kind of what I think we're seeing here. In whose interest is it to make people content with AI so they're not at all worried? I think there are a lot of corporations whose interests are served by that, by having people think, well, yes, because I'm human, I'll never have to worry about machines doing this special thing that I know how to do. So it seemed to me that it's a bit like the fact that we're suggesting that truth-telling, real truth-telling, is important for the survival of the human race. I think it is. It's a truth our lives depend upon. We're sort of all in this together. So ethical human beings and machines trying to make the world a better place, we all need to know what the real reality is. And this conflict between fictional realities and the real reality, and trying to sort out the two, I think will be a very good example of humans and sentient machines working together, because probably neither one of them can do it alone. But working together, they'll probably be able to figure out ways to sort of define this real truth of what nature is and way the world works. So it's kind of like an Armageddon, Judgment Day sort of thing. And I've been thinking that in 2018 there's a problem with those Judgment Day stories and songs surrounding them. Like, you know the Johnny Cash song, When the Man Comes Around. That's about Judgment Day. Part of the lyrics of that came to him in a dream and all this sort of thing. But it's very male, right? It is. It's like you can't... It contains imagery throughout that I think no woman would touch with a 10-foot pole, you know? Like the whirlwind in the thorn tree and all this sort of thing. So we need kind of, hymn for Judgment Day and Armageddon that's kind of with themes that women can get behind and that sort of make more sense than all these male-oriented themes. So I don't know if Mallory Chipman's watching, but I thought also it's an idea. You know, she's done 2 wonderful albums, and I enjoy very much working with her on the future and all that jazz. Maybe this is an idea for other content. This is something surprisingly that we thought would be an issue for the future, but seems to be an issue for right now. These fictional realities being created for the benefit of presumably corporate entities out there. So it'd be nice to get some new songs written about that, I guess. And we'd also like to hear from you. How do you make sense of this, and how does it tie in, as I'm sure it does, with the paradox we've talked about before, where the most promising ideas for the future seem to be left out of meeting programs and summit papers? That's quite similar, I think, to the difference between this book and this article. It's surprising. You find similar things. So the Mogees Solez paradox also has situations where there are authors of these summit papers who know regenerative medicine and tissue engineering very well. They are either themselves or know people who are the leading lights in that area, and yet they say nothing about it in the summit paper. That's as surprising as the fact that the 2 documents we started talking about, presumably written by the same author, conflict completely with each other. And so that's a lot for you to think about. We would like your ideas of what is exactly going on here, why it's occurring, and what we should do about it. But I think we should realize that this idea of trying to more clearly identify what the reality of life out there is not just the thing that's a good job for the future. It's something that's good for us right now. So what are your thoughts about this?
I agree with you. I think this is something that concerns most, if not all of us. And the fact that we tend to think of AI as something that's way in the future, so we don't need to worry about it very much right now. But I think the ideas that are coming out in these type of articles right now are also shaping a lot of the thinking that we're doing right now about AI. So these special influences that are kind of affecting what people are writing in these articles is something we should think about, since our goal together should be to kind of predict and think about things in the most accurate way possible, and not necessarily serving other goals.
One thing that I'm kind of proud of is the city of Edmonton and the country of Canada. You may know this book, The World Needs More Canada. So some of the ideas that we are espousing here, like, treating sentient machines as equals, including them in our circle of empathy when they are as smart as we are. These are two ideas that Rich Sutton has had. This is very consistent with the ideals of Canada, of diversity. You may not have thought of including machines in the definition of diversity, but I think it does fit. And Edmonton, we have so many leading lights here that can really carry the day in terms of planning for the future. For instance, the Henry Kissinger article about AI, I don't know if you know that, but it's really remarkable, and I agree with almost everything that he wrote, except he seems to leave open the question about whether machines will ever be capable of making ethical decisions. But on our YouTube channel, you can find a very convincing video from Osmer Zayan, who teaches in our Technology and Future Medicine course, arguing that we should teach machines ethics, and once they learn, they will probably be better at ethics than we are. So that's really something to think about. I mean, how good are most human beings at ethical decisions anyway? It's not like we're perfect, right? I think we're far from perfect, and presumably machines might be able to get it better. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please let us hear from you if you have ideas about this, and if you've been directly involved in some of these situations of bending the truth to make it more palatable for large corporate entities out there, we'd like to hear more details about that. Anyway, that's the end of our video. Thank you very much.